Welcome, everybody, to the Old Time Boxing Show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. The Old Time Boxing Show is brought to you by Replenishing Care and Technologies. Make sure you check them out at rcandt.com. I'm your co-host for the Old Time Boxing Show, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I would like to welcome in our resident boxing historian, Christopher Shelton. How you doing, Chris?
Good, Mike. Just looking forward to the subject. I wasn't sure Jimmy Ellis would be a good one, and yet I've had a lot of fun the last couple of weeks studying him.
Well, I think the thing that's good about it is he's a guy that was fighting when probably the heavyweight division was at its prime or one of its two or three best times in history in the 60s. You had the Muhammad Ali connection. You had the Angelo Dundee connection. And, I mean, when you watched the fight, he was a good fighter.
Oh, was he had boxing skills. He could hit much harder than people would remember. It's hard to believe or think of him as a sort of a first round knockout artist, but he really was. Most of his knockouts were scored in the first round, and that he gassed out after the third round. But he was an excellent boxer as a sparring partner for Muhammad Ali and Angelo Dundee helping him along. So he kept moving up into the heavyweight division. And the problem is just a couple guys named Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier, and following behind them, George Foreman. It's hard to squeeze in and actually be considered the champion with them. But Muhammad Ali said he's the champion, and the WBA said he was a champion. So that's what we're working with.
All right, now Ellis boxing after watching a friend, of course, Muhammad Ali, fight in Louisville on a television show called Tomorrow's Champions. That's when it dawned on him that he should fight, or that he wanted to be a fighter. He had a friend that actually lost to Ali. He became a boxer then. He turned professional as a middleweight, which I think not everybody may know, in 1961. And early in his career, he was trained by a guy by the name of Bud Bruner. And with Bruner, his record in his first 20 fights was 15-5. But those 5 losses were decisions to top middleweight contenders Holly Mims, who he actually beat in a rematch, Henry Hank, Reuben Hurricane Carter, Don Fulmer, and Georgie Benton. So I can say that from the looks of it, Jimmy Ellis was kind of thrown to the wolves by his manager.
I think he was with that 15-5 record. He had fought Muhammad Ali a couple times as an amateur, 1-on-1. Ali said when he looked at Ellis for the first time, a skinny guy holding really ugly looking underwear, dirty shorts, and old tennis shoes, and thought, "Who is this rat?" But yeah, they hung out, and and Ellis when he took that 15-5 as sort of a skinny middleweight moving on to a light heavyweight, it's really nothing. He was pretty much forgettable if it wasn't for Muhammad Ali becoming champion, and then just instantly overnight, there was a whole new Jimmy Ellis as he became a sparring partner on the undercard of Ali fights. Then he suddenly didn't lose. He had Angelo Dundee giving more and more attention as Ali encouraged Ellis. Ali was so good to Jimmy Ellis. And Jimmy Ellis is a church-going guy, met a girl, liked to sing in the choir, and suddenly he could hit hard. He just needed confidence, and Dundee gave it to him, and also he needed a little bit better stamina.
Yeah, and the thing about him, of course, is even in those 5 losses, I mean, there's not film of all of them, but from what I read, I mean, he split fights with Holly Mims. Georgie Benton was a majority decision. Fulmer was a split decision. He went to distance with Hurricane Carter. Henry Hank went distance, so it's not like he was competing against these guys either.
No, he's facing some good guys. Hurricane from the Bob Dylan song, in jail so many years for a murder he didn't commit. And the problem with Ellis is just he went for the knockout quick, and he hit you hard. If you could just sort of hang in there for 1 to 3 rounds, Ellis started tiring and couldn't seem to do much. But he certainly hit much harder in those early rounds than I think people can remember. When you think of the hard hitters, I don't even think of Jimmy Ellis, but clearly looking back on his record, the man hit hard, and he did it first round, bam, right to go, and did that for about 10 to 12 minutes, and then he started sort of hanging in there from there.
Yeah, and at the end of 1964, Ellis lost 3 out of 4 fights. He decided to leave his then manager, Bruner, and he actually wrote a letter to an at first skeptical Angelo Dundee, to trainer of Ali, and ask him to handle his career. Dundee later agreed to both manage and train him. Like you said, Ellis became a sparring partner for Ali. And for all intents and purposes, I mean, the sky was the limit after that. Then he had a shot at the heavyweight championship. He had good training. He had good training camps. He didn't have people rushing him. And it made
a huge difference in the world. The Amos Johnsons, the guys who Kent Greens, the guys who had beat Muhammad Ali, even knocked out Muhammad Ali, but it didn't work out their way as far as getting a good team. And Ellis suddenly had a good team. He had time to work with Ali. He had money. He could be with his families. They traveled, and suddenly the organization, as far as setting him up for these undercards, just really systematic, which was just so good for him. And obviously it's good for Ali. I mean, Ali had an undefeated run as the heavyweight champion the first time around. And Ellis was undefeated in that same run. And as Dundee started working with both fighters and under Ali's encouragement, suddenly Angelo Dundee looked like the greatest trainer on earth as Ellis moved from a light heavyweight contender into suddenly the first round knockout under the Foley Ali undercard. At third first round knockout in a row, Ellis had moved from the number 8 position in the light, number 5 position in the light heavyweight, number 8 position in the heavyweights, which was important because they're going to have an 8-person tournament.
Yeah, you talk about that tournament. It was part of the WBA's 8-man tournament to crown successor to Muhammad Ali, who had been stripped, of course, of the title by the WBA when he refused Army induction. The tournament included the aforementioned Ellis, Carl Mildenberger, Oscar Bonavina, Ernie Terrell, Thad Spencer, Floyd Patterson, and Jerry Quarry. Martin was in the tournament only because Joe Frazier was ranked number 2 by the WBA, and he chose not to fight. Instead, Frazier decided to fight Buster Mathis for the vacant New York State Athletic Commission World Heavyweight Championship. And this is a fight where Ellis was at his best. He dominated his fight. A lot of people thought that Martin would beat him, and he was ahead on all 3 official scorecards at the time of the stoppage. I think this was one of Ellis's most dominant performances.
It is, and he was still yet the undercard. The first night had 2 fights, and it was him versus Leotis Martin, who his little claims to fame is he killed Sonny Banks in the ring, and Sonny Banks is the first person to knock down Muhammad Ali as a professional. And in Martin's final fight, he knocked out Sonny Liston, and he got blinded and couldn't fight again. So he's a good fighter. He only had 1 loss going into that tournament, and from Philadelphia, and he goes, "Hey, the problem is there's Joe Frazier, and it's all Joe Frazier, not me." But Ellis nailed him in the first round. Just 3 first-round knockouts in a row. Nails Martin in the first round, and wobbled him a couple more times within the first 4 or 5 rounds, and opened up a cut. And Martin could never really get his way. And Ellis sort of cruised to a victory, though again he was sort of the undercard to a Thad Spencer, Ernie Terrell, who's the main event, and Thad Spencer. They had mutual knockdowns, and Thad Spencer scored the unlikely victory, and it's sort of Thad Spencer's night. So Jimmy Ellis is moving along, which is good, but he's still a little bit under the radar as it's Thad Spencer's night. But hey, he's got to win, and there's only 4 now down to semifinals.
Yeah, and in the semifinals, he fought Oscar Bonavina, who, if I remember right, beat Carl Mildenberger in the quarterfinal match. They fought in Freedom Hall. And really, I mean, to me, this might have been Ellis's most impressive performance. You talked about the way he could punch, and he knocked Ringo Bonavina, who was one of the toughest guys in boxing. I mean, he's a guy who dropped Joe Frazier twice. A lot of people thought he should have gotten the decision when they fought, and he knocks him down twice. He wins a tight, unanimous decision. And to me, when you look at this 4-fight run that Ellis is now in the second fight of really shows how good a fighter Jimmy Ellis was.
Oh, absolutely. That's, again, I think the Oscar Bonavina decision victory, 2 knockdowns on Bonavina, probably his most impressive victory. Dundee was we're going to win it. We're going to win this one. Howard Cosell said, are you sure about this one? But it's really impressive. Ellis knocked down Bonavina in the 3rd round, and then Bonavina started coming back, and Ellis started tiring. And in the 10th, he nailed him with that right that, if you can remember, of Ali nailing Foreman in the 8th round, when Foreman's kind of moving and sort of sludging too much and kind of disrespecting him, and then just moved right into a pow. Bonavina hits the ground, and it just tires down and burns down Bonavina enough that Ellis is just hanging on. But it's a very impressive win, the most impressive win of Ellis's career, I think, because Bonavina wasn't treated again like that until the 1970s. very impressive victory, moving on to the finals, along with Thad Spencer getting defeated by Jerry Quarry, which again sort of took away some more of the attention because Jerry Quarry, Thad Spencer was the big one, and Quarry was popular, so Quarry moved on, and now you have Jerry Quarry marquee against Jimmy Ellis, who's just kind of there, but you know what? That's now he's the marquee in the finals of this tournament to become the WBA heavyweight champion.
Yeah, and this was a really good tournament. The fights were competitive. Of course, this wasn't really be a heavyweight champion because Muhammad Ali was that, no matter what anybody said. But you get to the finals of this. Jerry Quarry lost to Jimmy Ellis by majority decision. A lot of people think that Ellis was the beneficiary of a bad decision. Do you agree with that?
No, I think Ellis had a great fight. I actually think it was scored too close. Apparently, Jerry Quarry broke his back wrestling with his brothers, who were also boxers and stuff, kind of being a little bit dumb. So I was kind of wondering about Quarry not really opening up on Ellis too much. So Ellis is kind of just boxing him. And I thought piling up rounds, but apparently he wasn't. And in the 13th, Quarry comes on and comes on strong. Maybe people felt that was an especially dominant round. And Quarry was coming on toward the end, and Ellis was sort of hanging on. Ellis had a very good final round, and I thought he should have won by a little bit more decisive decision. But nonetheless, he won. He was a very happy man. He thought maybe he could get away from the shadows of being the sparring partner of Muhammad Ali, though, again, he's an excellent sparring partner. That's no disregard to that. And meanwhile, the only problem is then you've got Joe Frazier versus Buster Mathis, who had never lost. And Buster Mathis should have been the Olympic representative, but he got injured. So 6 states would not recognize. Jimmy Ellis was a heavyweight champion in the WBA in 44 states in America, but 6 said no. Joe Frazier's the champion. And when all is said and done, it's still hard to say how to view Jimmy Ellis and all, but he's the WBA heavyweight champion, and Joe Frazier's the other heavyweight champion by 6 states, including New York.
Yeah, and this is his first title defense was against Floyd Patterson. And that was another fight that a lot of people really didn't think Ellis won. What was your take on the Ellis-Patterson fight? And I would like to say this, by the way, Ellis and Quarry I watched a couple days ago. I don't think either one of them deserved to win the fight. It was a terrible fight.
Well, it's only the referees in Sweden. Only the referee made the call, and his decision making was a little bit of a puzzle because it didn't appear to be actually, after a round marking somebody. It appeared that after it was over, he sort of filled it out in his head, and he just said that Ellis threw more punches, and that he felt that Ellis had a great 15th round, and basically just sort of gave him 9-6. And then sort of filled in each one from there. He thought Patterson was backing way too much. I thought Patterson was boxing and doing well under the circumstances, though Patterson was beaten so easily by Muhammad Ali and just picked apart. And Jimmy Ellis did not look good. He did not look as good as he did in the tournament. And really, it is kind of a sad state of affairs. And you can't help but think Joe Frazier's over there. Muhammad Ali's not being able to fight, and maybe Jimmy Ellis really isn't, even though he's the WBA heavyweight champion. Maybe he really isn't a heavyweight champion, but nonetheless, he moved on. He got his nose broken by Patterson in the early. He came to fight, but it's an old Floyd Patterson.
And then after that, following beating Floyd Patterson, Ellis was out of the ring for 17 months. He was going to fight Henry Cooper in the United Kingdom, even though the British Boxing Board of Control refused to recognize the fight as a world title bout. The BBBFC was affiliated with the WBC, who stated they would only recognize a fight between Joe Louis and a suitable contender as being for the world title. Despite the fight was supposed to take place a couple times, finally was canceled because of a Henry Cooper knee injury. Ellis then was planning to fight from Canada Bob Cleroy in Montreal, but Cleroy lost a tune-up fight to Billy Joyner. Finally, Ellis was going to fight Giorgio Peralta of Argentina's, but promoters canceled that fight.
Good job on your research. You're right. You really want to get Ellis in the ring, but things are happening, and he's not really fighting.
Well, and then he gets in the ring February the 16th, 1970. He fought Joe Frazier to unify the World Heavyweight Championship at Madison Square Garden in New York City. Frazier was undefeated. He was a heavy betting favorite, and he was too strong. He was too big, too powerful. Maybe not. I mean, Frazier was a guy who was not tall, but he was still a big heavyweight. It was just more wide than anything else. But he wore Ellis.
Coming at you, smoking Joe Frazier, coming at you, and Ellis' strategy itself is decent, trying to keep the jab, have a reach advantage, stay away from the ropes, and the problem is after the second round, Frazier just nails him with a hook, and then Ellis can't really get his bearings, and then very quickly Frazier's mauling him and knocking him into the ropes, and all of a sudden Ellis' strategy's gone. And he looks like there's no way he's going to survive after the third round. And the fourth round, first time he got knocked down as a professional, and he's in real serious trouble. And he gets knocked down again at the end of the round. He has to get up. He does. And Dundee does not let him go out for the fifth round, which probably a good decision. I mean, Frazier's just on fire. He's just pounding away and hitting and just attack, and not that easy to hit. And Ellis' strategy just went down the tubes within a couple rounds.
All right. Fight Game 100 says London checking in. Good talk, boys. I want to thank you for listening. Right now, we've got through 9 different places we're live on. We have over 600 people live listening right now. I want to thank everybody for listening. And now Chris is nervous because people are listening.
Oh, no. Now I just what we're going to do with Jimmy Ellis. Now he's lost his championship. And
but now he gets another big win. He beats George Chuvalo. Jimmy Ellis weighed 191. Chuvalo came into the ring at 218 pounds. What was your take on this fight?
Just that Ellis he nailed Chuvalo very quickly in the first round, and Chuvalo was able to survive that, and then Ellis started just boxing and landing jabs, and it took Chuvalo so long. It was in Toronto to get going, but finally in the eighth round it closes off the ring and he starts pounding around Jimmy Ellis, and Ellis has to hold and is in big trouble for the eighth and ninth rounds. And Chuvalo just Ellis had piled on too many rounds early on. For Chuvalo, it's kind of one of those things that when we did a show about him, it's always impressive when it's over because Chuvalo looks like, he didn't win very many rounds and he was sort of dominated. And yet at the same time, Ellis is the one in trouble, not Chuvalo. Chuvalo is just fine at the end of the fight while Ellis is all beaten up and but hanging on. A big win when he needed it to sort of resuscitate hopes he had as Muhammad Ali had come back from the ban, and Joe Frazier undefeated, and George Foreman coming back undefeated from the Olympics. And where's Jimmy Ellis' place in all that?
All right. And next, Jimmy Ellis gets a shot at Muhammad Ali. It did not work out well. I think if I remember right, because I watched this like a week or two ago, was it Angelo Dundee in Jimmy Ellis's corner for this fight?
He was. I thought that would be interesting to the decision making, but I guess really Ellis needed him more, and Ali just treated it like really just a sparring session. I mean, he so easily dominates Jimmy Ellis really from start to finish. Ellis apparently had maybe trained hard physically, but mentally Ali got into his head because he really didn't treat the weigh-in and stuff like Ali usually did. He just sort of acted like Jimmy Ellis wasn't there. He did the weigh-in and didn't do his braggarts and kind of things. He did a little bit early on, but as time moved on, he just sort of acted like, there's the first fight after he lost to Frazier, and then he just picked apart methodically Ellis, and finally the ninth round nails him, and Ellis is just really gone from that point. And Ali in the 12th and final round easily could have knocked him out with a minute left. Ellis is defenseless. Ali's just pick, and then easing up, and Ali would do it in the next fight with Buster Mathis where he could have knocked him out and didn't. There's something in Ali that he didn't want to hurt these guys. He could have hurt them. He could have knocked them out. He didn't want to. But the referee did stop the Ellis fight with about 45 seconds left. Didn't stop the Buster Mathis bout. So Ali just kind of wouldn't hurt them. But very easily defeated these great boxers. So when they keep saying Muhammad Ali's slow or Muhammad Ali's not the same guy, well, he may not be the same guy, but he's still the greatest.
Yeah, and the thing that's interesting about Dundee training Ellis, he did it because he actually would get a bigger share of the purse. Ali understood that. And the thing that I think a lot of people forget about is Harry Wiley, who'd worked with Henry Armstrong, Sugar Ray Robinson, ended up being the trainer for Ali for the Ellis fight. Yeah,
and I just gathered that the way they sort of immediately present this, a very unusual Ali sort of, again, he's sort of yawning and just treating like a sparring session. He must have gotten to Ellis's head really early on. I mean, psychologically, and just knew Ellis in his heart didn't think he could beat Ali. And if your heart you can't beat him, well, you're never going to beat him. And whatever the strategy was, They give Ellis, the 2 of the first 3 rounds, but that's just Ali playing, kind of gearing himself up, and really just sort of saying, okay, I got to trek ahead to get back to Joe Frazier.
Yeah, and the other thing that's kind of interesting about this is when I watched the fight, it struck me that Ali wore just kind of plain all-white shorts that looked way too big for him. And then when you read a little bit from the articles in the Ring magazine about this fight, Drew Bundini Brown had actually forgot to pack Ali's trunks, and that's why Ali was forced to wear the all-white trunks that were given to him that were way too big.
Yeah, and again, it doesn't really seem to matter. The amazing thing with both Ellis and Buster Mathis, the fights, is just how methodical Ali is. He reminds me a little bit of whatchamacallit, John McEnroe, the tennis player, who always played doubles in all his tournaments. They say, why would you play doubles when you got these grueling singles matches? I hate to practice. He goes, my practice is doubles. So I really feel, and Dundee had said to himself too, that Ali treated some of these fights a little bit like practice. He wanted to extend the fights. He wanted to get his training in. It almost sounds overconfident, but really there's no reason to look at it that way, because he's not really making himself open to Ellis or at Mathis. He's just picking him apart until really they're dead exhausted and can't do a thing. And then Ali eases up and decides he doesn't want to knock him out. But the referee did stop the Ellis fight.
And then Ellis goes on to win 8 straight fights, but they're against nondescript guys, a lot of guys that are even below 500. And then he fights Ernie Shavers June 18th, 1973 at Madison Square Garden. He traps Shavers in a neutral corner and looks like he might have him slightly hurt, but Shavers fights his way out, drops Ellis with a right uppercut to the jaw. Ellis tried to regain his feet, but was counted out. And this is really, the beginning of the end was probably the Ali fight. And I think that was shown by the fact that after the Ali fight, he did fight 8 guys that were kind of nondescript before they put him in against Shavers. And Shavers is a guy in 1973 who was not highly thought of.
Yeah, and I will give credit to Ellis for, it looks really bad at this point, a first-round knockout loss. And you think, Jimmy Ellis, maybe this is time to call it quits. But I will say Ellis came in on fire. He's pounding around Shavers. He's going for the first-round knockout. He was a first-round knockout guy. He goes for that knockout, swailing away, throwing punches, and then he sort of loses his balance and slips just enough that when Shavers lands that right uppercut, bam, that's it. Ellis is bam, on the ground, can't do a thing. I really think it was a good idea to go for that knockout with Shavers. And it didn't work out. A little bit of slip in the balance and Shavers punch, and also got a first-round knockout loss. And really no reason based on what's going to happen. You got a nice family. You're a father, 4 kids, good wife, church, Louisville. You're a hero and stuff. Maybe you got to think about retirement, but he doesn't.
All right, the next 2 fights later, he fights Boone Kirkman. And that was I think Kirkman's hometown was in Seattle, Washington. And he lost a split decision over 10 rounds. And this is a guy that, kind of like we've talked about before, Ellis comes out, knocks Kirkman down in the 3rd round with a left hook, right cross combination. But then after that, he just kind of peters out. Kirkman wins the fight. I have not seen video of this fight, so I don't know if this is a home cooking decision. I didn't really read much about it. What's your take on the loss to Boone Kirkman?
Just that it's the same Jimmy Ellis. He comes out strong. I think it's, again, a much harder puncher than people realize, and a stronger first round sort of knockout artist. You think of Mike Tyson like that, you don't really think of, or Jack Dempsey, you don't really think of Jimmy Ellis that way. But he was, but he gassed out, and he was doing it now. And all of a sudden, the losses start piling up on him, and he does gas out as the fight moves along. And he didn't seem to do anything to really about his stamina. Sort of reverting back to what he was in the earlier days, and it's kind of sad because it's just another loss, and meanwhile you've got this great Ken Norton's now in the mix with Frazier and Ali and Foreman and such, and Jimmy Ellis is not part of that mix, and taking losses, taking punches, guys like Lyle Bugner, just it's not necessary, but meanwhile he's fighting.
Yeah, and then his next 2 fights were against heavyweights that I really find interesting. And Ron Lyle and Joe Bugner, they're 2 guys that I think are underrated. I think they were better than a lot of people give them credit for. 1974, about the middle of the year, Ron Lyle beats Jimmy Ellis by a unanimous decision in over 12 rounds. And I think this is the fight that really put Ron Lyle on the map as a heavyweight contender. A year later, of course, he would give Ali trouble before Ali stopped him in the 11th round.
Yeah.
But to me, this was an impressive performance by Lyle, and Ellis showed a lot of courage in this fight.
He did, and I spoke really fondly of Lyle, and the fans were for Lyle because we think of himself as a hard puncher, but not really the best trained boxer. But Ellis said this guy wasn't as easy to hit as people think. I was having a little trouble hitting him. He did know how to defend himself, and the guy can hit like a sledgehammer. So he said, I fought a tough guy, and the decision went his way, went Lyle's way, and I'm fine with that. But yeah, an impressive win by Lyle, and he didn't really take on just a has-been. It's just unfortunately Ellis is piling up these losses. Lyle's it's a credible win, and for Ellis, still wish he'd get out of the boxing game, but it's a tough loss, and I guess he's still gonna move on.
Yeah, but you still got you got to fight anyways. Next up, he goes to Wembley to fight Joe Bugner. Joe Bugner's a guy that I don't think gets the respect he should. If you've ever seen Joe Frazier against Joe Bugner, their first fight, I mean, that is a great heavyweight fight. Ali against Bugner in the first fight. Bugner actually gave Ali some trouble. And in this fight, Ellis loses a decision. Harry Gibbs, of course, in England, the only referee, had to fight 100-96. So Ellis required 7 stitches to close a cut on his right eye. And I think it's obvious by now that the end is pretty much there for Ellis.
Yeah, now and again, sort of the same sort of pattern. Ellis, nailed Bugner in the first round, and even though we usually say, "Oh, those crummy English judges," no, this one seemed like it was all right. Bugner knocked down Ellis in the last round, not the 15th, in the 12th round, and it appears Bugner was growing in strength as the fight progressed, and Ellis was sort of hanging on, and again, Ellis is such a gentleman and stuff like that, and a tough loss for Ellis, but he's just. It's another L on his record. And Bugner, yeah, I guess it's hard to think of him because he's like a Chuvalo, but not as exciting. I don't know what to think of that. But Bugner was a tough guy, not hard to knock down, hard to knock out, that's for sure. And so a win for Bugner. He knocked down Ellis, and another L for Jimmy Ellis.
Yeah, the next was pretty much the last draw. It was billed as a title eliminator. Joe Frazier versus Jimmy Ellis, March 2nd, 1975 in Melbourne, Australia. And it was the last go-around basically for Ellis and for whoever lost this fight, basically. Ellis was 1-4-1 in his previous 6 fights. Unlike the first fight, I thought Ellis really held his own in the first 3 rounds.
Absolutely.
And on, Frazier just kind of steamrolled him.
Yeah, it was very impressive, Jimmy Ellis. I was really surprised because it's the second last fight of Jimmy Ellis' career. It'll be the last win of Frazier's career, and Ellis is boxing him beautifully. And you're what's going on? This is so late in Ellis' career. He should be slowing down. And what's going on that he's outboxing and has such good hand speed against Frazier, but it's not the same Joe Frazier. Joe Frazier has slowed down. Joe Frazier has taken a pounding from Foreman and Ali, and Ellis just looks terrific for 4 rounds and such. And then I guess he got cut in the 7th round, and Frazier then started piling on a little bit, and Dundee decided in the 9th round enough is enough, and basically he threw in the towel. Which was the wise thing to do, but for Jimmy Ellis, very impressive second outing against Joe Frazier, and again, last win of Frazier's career, and the loss of Jimmy Ellis' career.
Yeah, and the most interesting thing about this fight to me was the fact that Bob Foster, the former light heavyweight champion who Frazier had knocked out in the 2nd round a couple years before, was actually the referee of this fight.
Yeah, and I will say that the first fight, Frazier could, if you watch a lot of his early fights, as much as I love Frazier, love watching him, he does, just because of his style, he headbutts and hits low quite a bit, and I don't know if it's dirty, it's just his aggressiveness, but you don't really see much of that against Ellis. Ellis is sort of keeping a distance and stuff like that, which is wise against Frazier. So yeah, it was a fairly clean fight under the circumstances, and Frazier gets to move on to Manila. and the Thriller, and Jimmy Ellis gets to go injures himself shortly after in a training session and decides to call it a career, but he's going to put in one more round and one more fight just to pick up a paycheck and ended it with a W.
All right, now his later life was sad. I mean, he moved back to Louisville, I believe, did some work there, and he suffered from pugilistic dementia for over a decade before his death. It was reported from one of the articles I read that Ellis's condition was so bad that he believed his deceased wife, who died in 2006, was still alive. He ended up dying at the age of 74 from complications of dementia in 2014. And I mean, that's what's sad about this sport.
It is.
Yeah.
He had a good run, though, for at least the 80s and 90s and retirement and such like that. He said Muhammad Ali, and he would speak in the 90s. And the first thing Muhammad Ali would always say is, hey, champ, reminding him, because Ellis was sort of a little skeptical himself whether he should be viewed that way. And Ali said, no, you're a champion. Always remember you're a champion. And Ali was so good to Ellis and like Jimmy Ellis. He liked that Jimmy Ellis was a family man. And Jimmy Ellis was so attached to his wife. He just loved his wife so much. And when she died in 2006, I think that broke his spirit too. So that's apparently when the dimension picked up and got worse. And maybe you do in the midst of things, hope your wife's alive when she's not, and you don't know what's happening. And it is sort of sad for Muhammad Ali to grow up with this guy in a sense, and then at some point Ellis doesn't know who he is. So when Ellis passed away, Muhammad Ali could not have put out a nicer statement that this man was a worthy a heavyweight champion, deserves to be remembered as a heavyweight champion. And then more important, he had a good heart, a good family, was a good family man, and should be remembered. He cared about his church, his community of Louisville, and Ali had nothing but condolences for Jimmy Ellis's friends and family.
All right, Chris. Next Sunday night, we're going to be back. You want to tell everybody what we're going to discuss on next Sunday night's topic on the Old Time Boxing Show?
Yes, we're going to be discussing a Pritchard Colon versus Terrell Williams 2015 fight that's left Pritchard Colon in a coma for nearly 5 years. The family won't pull the plug because of Catholicism and hoping that there's going to be a miracle and stuff. And it's very puzzling because I saw that this fight was being taken away from seeing it in America and YouTube and stuff like that. But at least they've been in Daily Motion and Europe and other channels. It's being stripped and taken away everywhere. It's sort of a whitewash of what happened during that fight. Very dirty fight. Williams had a habit. He's kind of a club fighter of hitting rabbit punches. I don't know if they're intentional, but they got intentional. They got dirty. And Pritchard Colon himself smashes Williams as hard as he could, the nuts, and very nasty. But you really can't see these. I'm hoping the fans out there can find tape and stuff. Now, I wrote about it, and I went round by round, but I'm surprised at what's going on. There's a lot of blame to go around. This is a dirty one. We talk about some of the fighters that have died in the ring, and it's unfortunate. This is more than unfortunate. There's wrongdoing, and there's people trying to hide this wrongdoing even today.
But the thing what I would really like to do is if anybody out there has a film of this fight, you can email me at thegruelingtruth@gmail.com. We could actually do this where if we could find a copy of this fight, we could play the copy of the fight and talk about the fight while it's going on next Sunday night. And if you have video of this fight, and you want to come on and be the third co-host for this show, anybody out there that has film of it is more than welcome.
He's Queen's language. Hell to the fuck yeah. I love for everybody to see the dirtiness of this fight and what's trying to be hidden. This fifth and sixth round stuff is the nastiest thing you're going to see in boxing. I don't care how many boxing bouts you see. And there's a lot of blame to go around, even including Colon's family, including Colon himself. Williams' club's habits, the referee, the promoter, and then the whole whitewash. Why can't you watch this fight? You can only watch part of the final round, and that didn't tell you a thing. And it's really, really sad as Colon keeps going to the back of his head for the rabbit punches. He's hurt, and he doesn't realize that it's all going to be over. And the family kind of banked that this was their gold ticket, and oh god, so sad. I'm glad we're going to talk about it, and we're going to talk about it. Whoever's trying to hide shit, we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, and Sunday night we will be here at 8:00 Eastern time to discuss Pritchard Colon and that fight, and really his ill-fated demise and everything that's went around that over the last 5 years. because, as we know, nobody ever wants to take responsibility for anything anymore. So
Yeah.
we're going to discuss that, and we're going to try to give our opinions on it. And like I said, you can watch that show live on Twitch, Periscope, Facebook, YouTube. So make sure you tell all your friends about it. Make sure you follow us at The Grueling Truth on Twitter. You can hear all of our shows on thegruelingtruth.com. You can hear our live NFL show daily at 1 o'clock, Monday through Friday. You can hear me and Chris every Sunday night from here on now, Chris. With the numbers of people we have watching this live right now, we got to go weekly, buddy.
I like it, and pray for Pritchard. And I got a great story I wrote about it, because I wrote round for round, but I think it's really great the audience could see for themselves.
All right, so if anybody has that film, you can message us on any social media platform. We'll get the upload from you. You can come on the show with us. We'll break down the film of that fight, watch it as it goes. If not, we'll have to go off Chris's round by round. We'll have some other things we can add to the show also. So for now, we're going to go ahead and wrap the show up. We hope to see everybody Sunday night of next week at 8 o'clock. But for now, for Christopher Shelton, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak. Hey, Chris, we just put up a massive freaking dude on Jimmy Ellis.
Wait, what?
I mean, I'll tell you in a second if you want to stay on. But sure. we never had less than 200 people watching live just on Facebook once we were 5 minutes in.
That's great, because we couldn't